Hi, I'm Paul Shred, International Editor of the Cyber Express, and with me today is Amit Lokhande, Associate Director for Research at threat intelligence leader Cyble, and Naman Talwar, Senior Solutions Engineer at Cyble, and we're here to talk about national security and government uses of threat intelligence. Welcome, gentlemen. It's an honor to have you with us.
Hi, Paul. Um, Nice to be here.
Yeah. Why don't we start with you, Naman? Why is cyber threat intelligence critical for government, military, and critical infrastructure sectors? And what makes threats in those areas different from commercial enterprises?
So, when you look at commercial enterprises, most of the threats are focused on threat actors, hackers who are financially motivated, right? Who want to sell databases, who wants to sell credentials, who wants to sell documents, who wants to lock computers up and then sell it for money. More or less, this is what the restriction was. As compared to the government, the corporate also have slightly lesser attack surface. That won't be that probably may not be the same for the large enterprises, but more or less, most of the enterprises are smaller attack surface as compared to governments. Governments, the approach of the threat actors completely changed. The types of threat actors also completely changed. So when you deal with governments, most of the time, and this is not always, we have a researcher here also on the call, most of the time, and quite a lot of time, it's about espionage, right? So the people are not really necessarily, some of them are, but not necessarily trying to make money off the governments. So they want to get into the infrastructure, they want to get into, let's just say, Department of Defense, Ministry of Defense, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, critical infrastructure jam, plant their bots, stall them over a period of time, try to get documents, try to listen on to the conversation, target specific people in military installations and intelligence installations. So the nature of the people that they're also targeting are also different. So it will be financially motivated hackers. It could be sort of an operating model where a government doesn't want to get involved directly into targeting other governments, so they will use the threat actors' affiliate networks to get them targeted and then get the document selling, sort of like false flag operations. It could be direct APT teams funded, maintained by governments who have unlimited budgets, who have a lot of time into target other governments. So the scale of which the people target, the motivations are completely different. They could be financial, but a lot of time it's espionage, it's sabotage, it's targeting thing, it's trying to take down system, it's trying to delete databases, delete documents. So the scale goes up. Another element that also comes in is government, any government you take, any medium to large size country, the number of employees, the number of systems, the number of ministries, the different types of systems that they're using are very, very large, right? So it's not a standard set. So you have to protect a lot of things for the people, for the government. So you can probably, if you, let's just say, protect very highly some defense areas, some bases, some military installations, maybe you can protect those. But not all the ministries in Interior Ministry, Home Affairs Ministry, whatever it's called in your environment, in your government, not all of them are mostly protected. So the scale in which the protection also happens goes out in a very large scale. The people that you're targeting you are much more sophisticated. The people that they're targeting are necessarily not trying to make off money. The problem with that is if somebody is not making money, they can do a lot of damage. If their motivation is not just to blackmail you for a period of time and then try to take money off you, the problem goes on. It can result in sometimes system going down. We have a whole history of threats with respect to these, but all of these elements. So the scale, the way the operations is done, all of them just goes on to another scale in terms of government, military, critical infra, especially what.
Wow. That's a lot to worry about. Ahmed, any thoughts here?
Again, as Naman suggested, they are generally driven by geopolitical objectives, and they can range from espionage to intellectual property theft. Right? And sometimes they are used as a political coercion tools, as we've seen historically as well. And sometimes they're just pre-positioning for future conflicts that they want to wage. So these activities can be, we want to embed in these systems, and then we have future geopolitical objectives with this region, and we want to use these as weapons when the time suits right for us. So So as Naman suggested, these have longer timelines. They're not just a quick hack that they want to run, but have larger objectives in mind.
Yeah. So it seems then that organizations in this area need to think carefully about their controls, like, maybe backup and segmentation and, guarding secrets and things like that probably seem to really matter in this area. Is that fair to say? Or
So, I mean, if you look at organizations who work within the defense or sensitive sectors, right, they have been known to be at the receiving end of these attacks. They may be from any country, from the US to India to Russia. Again, this goes long way. If you are even a small supplier to a defense infrastructure or a defense corporation, which means you are a supply chain to them. Since if the malware or the APT group gets embedded within your systems, they can go from your systems to their target systems from there, which can be a larger defense manufacturer. Or you may be a specialist in a particular key defense or a manufacturing ability, right? So which means your intellectual property is something which has been derived over decades of research. So if the adversary has the objective that, hey, I want to replicate this particular technology and I don't have decades to research and build this on my own, I can just steal this from you and then I have that tech with me. So again, as I said, the objectives can be wide. They can be intellectual property from coercion to sometimes they can just be financial gains, like North Korea with the Lazarus group. Many times their objectives are financial gains so that they can fund the regime with their funds. I'm not saying it is just financial gains. It can be espionage as well because it is a dual intent technology. Cyber.
There have been incidents also where technology was stolen, so we can't take names openly, but where a certain technology company, plane manufacturing company, jet manufacturing company was targeted by another country, and the blueprints and everything was stolen. So this has happened. It's not recent. This has been, and it's going to continue to go down. But that's like hundreds and millions of dollars of research just being taken out of by one attempt.
Actually, let's stay with that thought for just a minute. As you look at the history of this area, and how have state-sponsored actors targeted critical infrastructure and military installations over time? Has that changed or evolved?
Initially, it was more about defacement and understanding of how these institutions work, or as an expression of political will or opinions on them. So there used to be defacements, things like that. But the biggest break from how cyber can be used as a weapon started with the famous Stuxnet attack in Natanz, Iran. So 2006-8, I think. So that was the opening, which opened the can of worms for cyber as a weapon across globe. But that is quite already well known, and almost everybody else knows about it. But the ones which are not so well known, I think, are from the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. The NotPetya attack in 2016 is quite well known, right? Which used the Eternal Blue malware, which in fact the malware or the Eternal Blue exploit was from a leak of NSA leaks. So the hacker group used that NSA leak exploit, which was SMB share exploit, to run through Ukraine in 2017 Ukrainian energy infrastructure, and they deployed Viper malware. It was a supply chain attack. They used a Ukrainian company called, I think, MEDoc, which was an accounting software which was used by the Ukrainian government as well. So, but this effect the effect was not only felt in Ukraine, but Siemens and other larger global giants also faced ramifications from these attacks. But the 2015 one was, again, it used Black Energy 3 malware. It was again a Viper malware, and I think the initial vector for that was phishing, a simple phishing attack. So yeah, these things they look quite simple, but the ramifications of those, are quite long and quite wide. If you look at how critical infrastructure is for our modern world, critical infrastructure enables our daily life and economic activity, right? And all of these are quite interconnected in today's world. And these systems they rely on each other. And any failure in any one of them, say an energy sector or an energy plant or a water treatment plant, has cascading effects on our lives and on other sectors. So critical infrastructure is something that we've seen being at the receiving end of these targets. The larger sector, we call it as operational technology and industrial control systems, called OTICS. That is where the majority of these systems are controlled as well. So we've seen cybercrime groups or nation-state actors targeting these particular industrial systems from a point of view. Something which not or less spoken about, if I can take examples, is from Saudi, wherein a malware which was specifically designed for Schneider's Triconix safety instrument systems, SIS, safety instrument systems. These systems are embedded in petrochemical facilities, right? And they act as the last line of defense for catastrophic failures like explosions or toxic releases from these facilities. And these industrial control systems were targeted from hacker groups. We're not really sure who the entity was, but the ramifications of these devices failing, because they control explosions and toxic releases of gases from these petrochemical facilities. And specific targeting of these safety instrument systems should tell you that the objectives are sometimes physical damage as well. So it's a wide range, from physical damage to espionage to financial motives as well. From financial motives point of view, if you look, I think the North Korean Lazarus Group, the report from research, it suggests that in 2023 they were able to steal, I think, around $600 million. That's US dollars. And that ramped up to $1.3 billion. That's a billion with a B in 2024. So that's quite a massive growth. And for a country which has sanctions on accessing these funds, this contributes significantly to the state's coffers. And this is just the financial motives that I'm speaking. They also conduct intelligence or espionage-driven attacks as well, right? So one of the examples was in 2019, wherein DTrack malware, that is DTRACK, was deployed by the same hackers in Kudankulam, in India's nuclear power plant as well. So, and this was not a financially motivated attack either. This was espionage to understand how these pressurized reactors work, so that they can replicate that technology within their country as well. So the group has quite a wide varied target in them. Again, there are similar breaches as well, but a few ones which are not widely spoken about is how ransomware as a tool can be used for nation-state actors, or the data from ransomware can be used. One, I think in 2021, ASRY, ASRI, it's a shipyard in Bahrain which was compromised, and the data was released from the ransomware group. The US Navy docks within the port's limits, and the personnel who have checked in what ships were docked, what was the specific enhancements that were done, or what supplies were supplied to that ships, were also part of that leak. So if you want to know what food or anything else was taken in from Bahrain by the US Navy, it's available and it was released freely. Yeah, as you know, that has significant ramifications for anybody who wants to know as to what the operational availability of these systems are, things like that. Similar pattern with Turkish shipyards as well. I don't want to take names, but these shipyards also run midlife upgrade for quite a few submarines. They build defense equipment for naval platforms as well. So you can imagine the supplier information, what specific engineers are deployed, their names, their numbers, their family history. That is a treasure trove for anybody who wants to pick through this information. So I think I went on the longest way. As I conclude with that, they have significant objectives. They can be from espionage to intellectual property theft to political coercion to positioning themselves for future conflicts.
Yeah. Wow, that is a lot to worry about, isn't it? Actually, this is probably a
Long
good. Yeah, this is probably a good time to ask. What is it that that cyber threat intelligence like Cyble can do to help in these sectors?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So there are multiple things. The most and the simplest way is to defend yourselves, like for everybody else, for the governments, for the critical infrastructures, for their suppliers, almost everybody in the chain, you will see a large amount of information, details, credentials, passwords, documents, vulnerabilities, phishing attempts in hundreds and thousands in some cases that are already out there. This is already out there, already being available for anybody with even, let's just say, as soon as $10, $15 to consume. So the large amount of in terms of threat intelligence is to protect this large attack surface, large area of surface which can be attacked for you. So that will include going through the hundreds and thousands of data points in some cases. So if you look at in the entire government scale, if you look at specific department scale, maybe thousands of credentials or hundreds of credentials, information, vulnerabilities on their systems, or existing malware which we know. So there are, in this case, there are a lot of malwares which we don't know are already there that are being used to conduct, let's say, a lot of espionage. But apart from that, there's a lot of things that we know which can be modified, right? Now, the same way you use it for defensive purposes, there's also an element of investigative purposes. Anybody who has a digital presence in today, there is a great amount of information data, PI data that is already out there for almost anybody. So if there are organizations like law enforcement who wants to investigate certain threat actor group, investigate certain people who, are in the drug business, child pornography, different types of illegal activities, there's a lot amount of information that can be construed, and that information can be used to track these behaviors. It can be used to track money laundering. So a lot of these, Amit talked about Lazarus Group. I'll not take the name of the country, but where the money has been going on, how that has been, all of that has been done because the financial were most, the transactions were mostly in crypto. So if you look at money, where the money is going, if most of these cybercrime activities, including terrorism, that you look at, the base foundations of all of them is to track money. So there's a good amount of that also that happens on the dark web. There's a good amount of weapons tracking that also happens on dark web. So there's a second element that comes in, investigative elements. And obviously, this is not a use case for Cyble, but threat intelligence, what we have seen is also being used for a lot of offensive purposes. The same way the information is out there for US, India, it's also information is out there for Russia, China, whoever it is, that a particular country, whoever the people that they don't like, the countries that they don't like, department that they don't like. So there's an offensive element that also comes in. So the first and foremost element is to protect yourself, because what we have seen is any case of war-like scenario, any case of even, let's just say, large scale, negotiation rounds that are happening in UN, you will see a lot of espionage, the kind of these activity. In case of war-like scenario, I think Amit mentioned already, the first places that go are things like energy grid, right? They just turn off your lights in winters, which can be very difficult, especially in Russian, Ukraine, all that areas, right? Second system, if they want to, and they have been targeted, the banking sector. If you take out the lights out of people's home, if you take out the ways of people not being afford to pay for anything that they want to pay. If people are not sensitive to war-like environment, and most of the population in the world are not sensitive to that, people can panic easily, right? So before you go into the war, essentially they can create a lot of panic. I was just recently, I was showing an Instagram reel where a simple normal day-to-day hacker, they got into the alarm system, tornado alarm system, and they just start playing SpongeBob music. But imagine, instead of SpongeBob music, people can send whatever message they can send, right? So there was a very large leak where somebody using, I think, Shodan, they targeted a lot of printers. So instead of saying that, your printer is hacked, if they say some sort of message which can trigger a lot of things, right? Trigger a lot of emotions, it can cause wide load panic. And based on all of the things that Amit has mentioned so far, why this is so very important to is, until now we have not seen large scale human deaths caused by these environment, but that can also not be unaccounted for going forward, right? We have already seen massive usage of drones. This can be, and drone hacking, by the way, also. So protection is very important. Second element Cyble can use is investigation. And there are a lot of data out there where the same data information can be used for offensive purposes, which a lot of, you can always assume governments and other elements use. So all of these things are important. Cyber at least will help you with two of them.
It is a lot to think about, huh? Actually, let's you touch on a couple things there, but one thing that came to mind is what is the most surprising or underestimated tactic that adversaries have used to exploit critical infrastructure? What have you both seen? I'd actually like to hear some stories there, if you don't mind.
No.
Amit, do you want to go first?
So, I'll go first. This is not the surprising one, but the simple basic thing, such as phishing. That is what we've seen as the easiest way around for any adversary. Right? It seems easy. It seems like something that we can block away, or everybody thinks that they can fall for a phishing attack. Even larger or experienced senior cybersecurity researchers or leaders, it seems like trivial that, hey, I'll never fall for it. But we've seen with Bybit as well as recently, wherein phishing was used. It's something that looks innocent enough and simple enough that it goes through still. And with the emergence of generative artificial intelligence, you can club a person's online presence and where they've signed up, what services they use. You can club their older breach data and information from that breach data. You can build a person's profile, ask or take or put that information with using generative artificial intelligence. You can build a very good and quite convincing phishing email for anybody. Then it looks like, hey, I've been using this service and I'm getting an email from this service. So your guards are down already, and you click on that link. If it is, gone are the days of Nigerian prince, but that is not effective anymore. But with data and correlations as sophisticated as they are today, a phishing link can be very convincing for somebody.
To add to that, the large part of any, I would say, offensive scenario, right, where anybody can attack is the reconnaissance. They will usually spend months on knowing about, let's just say, a government wants to target another government or whoever wants to target. There's a good amount of time that gets spent on tracking people, who they are, what systems they are using. All of that, with the advent of data breaches, with the advent of information, personal information, like Amit mentioned, where they're accounted, it becomes very easy. Now, if they know already that you're using these 20 services, you have lived in these 5 places, this is your daughter's name, this is where your son goes to college, this is where this is what your wife's name is. All of these elements, if you really spend some time, or maybe you can use AI, if let's just say, click ratio on a phishing email probably was 0.1%, 1%, whatever the number was earlier, by creating a very sophisticated profile, the numbers can go higher. especially on the people who are not so sensitive. So let's just say maybe an accounts department or maybe a marketing department, maybe an HR department of a hydroelectric dam is not paying so much attention, right? A marketing team, you being from marketing team, you anyway subscribe to 15 services, right? If you receive an email from those services, you're going to likely click on them if you want to, if the email is sophisticated. So that is one. The second element that I've seen is just there used to be a lot of effort that used to be spent on figuring out what systems are, then finding vulnerability. You don't really need to do that these days. There are a lot of government systems, trust me. Uh, we do it for a lot of our clients. Some of the most sophisticated cyber secure company organizations in the world, governments in the world, you would be surprised to know how many systems are not on two-factor authentication. And already 100,000, multiple thousands of their credentials are already out. So you just need to use username and password, basically, to get in. The most unsurprising. And it can be just changed by, just by, if you're really monitoring, if you're really using cyber threat intelligence, you can just really look at and get those credentials changed. But surprisingly a large amount of military systems, intelligence systems that are also exposed like this. You don't really need to hack in, you can just log in. So these are some of the old timers tactics, but a lot of those systems have been compromised. We have seen quite a bit of them, and we have seen just by our own assessments that we sometimes do for our clients, we've seen a lot of those systems. So, and that will be any countries. Maybe some countries are better. Maybe US, Russia, India, China, Israel, Iran are not that susceptible. But even then, if somebody spends enough time, you'll find a lot of systems. Then bring cross correlation. So let's just say maybe in fisheries department, that technology is being used. There's a good chance that is being used also in hydroelectric dams also. So you never know, right? So cross correlations, you can move inside very, very quickly. So these are some of the very simple, plain old using username and passwords, ABC at 1 2 3, right? And just log in.
Yeah.
Adding
Well, the
info
only
stealers as well with this.
Add
If you add in info stealers as well, then you have a treasure trove of information of credentials available right away.
Yeah, we don't want to give people the way to get into these systems, so we're not we're not talking about that. But there are markets out there where they'll just sell you credentials, latest credentials. I'll not go deep down into that because again, the intention is not to tell people the ways to do these things, but these are there. These are there. These can be easily prevented, which are what I've seen personally are not being done on a large scale across every government in the world.
Yeah, and now that is actually good news that just getting the basics right could probably do so much more than people are doing now.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, you both have given us lots to think about and a lot of different ways that threat intelligence can be used in this area to both keep organizations safe and to help law enforcement with their job also. So awesome work that the both of you are doing, and thank you for coming on and sharing it with us. So thank you both, and thank you to our audience for your time also.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having us, Paul.